At number 10 is TRITON. This underwater hero is definitely one of the most powerful Inhumans of the royal family, even in comparison to his cousins Black Bolt and KARNAK. He's able to withstand drastic shifts in water temperatures as well as changing currents beneath the surface of the ocean, on top of the expected increased strength, stamina, agility, etc. But his enhanced power is not to be taken lightly. He's actually proven to be more powerful than even Namor himself when facing off underwater, which naturally says a lot about his strength levels. He's typically known to be ATTILAN's link to any underwater dwellings, and he's not to be underestimated. The only reason that he's at the back of our list is because he's only at his strongest when he is in an underwater setting. In fact, he isn't really powerful at all out of the water. Not to embarrass him too much, but you watching this video right now are more powerful than TRITON out of water. Because the truth is that TRITON would dry up and die within minutes of being out of the water. It's not all bad though, he can just represent the royal family's underwater presence and keep to himself down there. It's probably a lot more peaceful than it is up here anyway.
Number 9. KARNAK. So, many Inhumans have incredibly unique and awesome powers. Only, KARNAK's ability isn't so much a superpower as it is a learned skill. KARNAK never went through the process of Terrigenesis, which would have activated his Inhuman gene and given him more powers. Since he never went through this process, he has all the enhancements of a regular Inhuman, including super strength, speed, stamina, and durability. But unlike other Inhumans, KARNAK has trained himself to be an extremely powerful martial artist. But beyond that, he developed an incredibly powerful trait of being able to sense weak points, fracture planes, and stress points in enemies, objects, plans, arguments, and anything, really. Obviously, in combat, he can use this alongside his martial skills to defeat opponents even more quickly, but the applications outside of combat are incredibly useful as well. For example, he found a weakness in death itself and was able to bring himself back to life. Which, I mean, okay man, you win. I can't really do anything against that. Yeah, you're good.
At number 8 is Maximus, or Maximus the Mad. Maximus is known as the jealous brother of Black Bolt, but even though he's got a hang up about Black Bolt's power, he's got quite the power set of his own. He's a telepath who's able to control the minds of others, alter the memories of others on command, and change someone's personality at will. These are pretty hefty abilities, and they don't even end here. He's also able to read minds and project illusions to confuse his enemies. He's known as Maximus the Mad due to his bouts with mental illness and his lack of control over his hysteria and jealousy because of his brother's competence, among other things. But although this is normally cited as one of his shortcomings, I would argue that this angle of Maximus's personality is part of what makes him so powerful as well. Because although he may have issues controlling himself when he's able to, he has an even stronger motivation to get done what he needs to get done. However, it's probably true that most of the time his insanity only gets in the way of him being the most effective that he can be, so he's held back a bit on this list. But he still makes it. Number 8, it's not too bad.
Number 7. King of the Inhumans. Not only is Blackagar Boltagon an Inhuman, but as I said, he's also royalty. He is actually the king of the Inhumans. He ended up inheriting the responsibility of ruling monarch due to him being the firstborn of the previous king and queen, Aegon and Rynda. Tragically, Black Bolt inherited the throne after the untimely death of his parents. They died as a result of one of Maximus's villainous plots, albeit by accident. Maximus's plot wasn't necessarily to kill his parents, but he was conspiring with the alien race known as the Kree. As a result, when Maximus attempted to escape in one of the Kree ships, Black Bolt was forced to use his great power, his voice, to prevent the ship from getting away. Tragically, it fell out of the sky and then kinda crash landed into the Parliament building, destroying it and killing their parents and a few other important Inhumans of note. Black Bolt was crowned thereafter as the new king.
At number 6 is the Jailer. The Jailer is a criminal who is punished by the Council of ATTILAN for a series of crimes he committed, and he's sent to a secret torture facility to spend the rest of his life there. But he somehow finds a way to not only escape, but take control of the prison. He even steals the uniform of his former captors, and actually instead of escaping, he ends up sticking around to keep running the jail on his own, feeding off of the suffering from the other inmates. One of the jailer's biggest advantages is that he hides his true identity from everyone, keeping himself safe from any attempts on his life. But that's not his most powerful attribute by any means. His power primarily comes from his psychic vampirism, which describes his ability to feed off of the suffering of others to give himself more power. He can also take over people's minds and control them without them even knowing it. This means that his influence can stretch from the jail to wherever one of his mind-controlled victims travels to. But he's also able to manipulate the bodies of those he inhabits, transforming the appearance and physiologies of his victims at will. So, as long as there's suffering going on, he's at his strongest. And the only reason why he's held back on this list at all is that he's bound to the jail pretty exclusively, and it could be argued that he'd lose a significant amount of power if he were to leave his post. But he's still a huge force and is not to be underestimated. At number 5 is Medusa. The Queen of ATTILAN had to make an appearance on the list, being hands down one of the most powerful Inhumans out there. She is known to have a higher level of strength, speed, and stamina than even Captain America himself. But her main power set is related to her hair, which she can manipulate using psionic forces that course through her hair follicles. Her hair is extremely durable and flexible, giving her a whip, a shield, and an almost infinitely strong extra appendage on command. Pretty much anything that one could imagine someone being able to shapeshift a head of hair into. The only drawback to her powers are that her hair acts as the boundary to which her psionic manipulation can extend. So on a list about powerful human beings, she is up against some that can manipulate psionic energies within the space around them, not just in relation to something like their hair. But she's also known as an extremely skilled tactician and powerful politician, which should not be discounted on a list about power. At number 4 is QUAKE. QUAKE, aka Daisy Johnson, is a former agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a very powerful Inhuman. And the way she gains her powers is relatively unorthodox as well, having never passed through the Terrigen Mists like the other Inhumans. The way she gets her powers and becomes an Inhuman is simply due to the fact that her mother was an Inhuman and her father was supervillain Calvin Zabo, aka Mr. Hyde, who experimented on himself with the Hyde formula. With the combined powers of her Inhuman mother and her synthetically superpowered father, QUAKE is an extremely powerful force from the day that she's born. But that's just her origin. Her power set is also very impressive. Super strength, reflexes, speed, and endurance, all of which are known to be slightly greater than the likes of even Captain America himself. And I haven't even gotten to her main powers yet. QUAKE's main power is vibration manipulation, which allows her to generate massive waves of vibration, which are synonymous with they're basically earthquakes. She can create earthquakes. But even further, after training with Nick Fury, she learns to target subjects with this power as well, causing her targets to vibrate from the inside out and destroy their insides on command. I know this sounds gruesome, but it's not always used to kill. One time, she uses the power to destroy the power supply to a bomb planted inside the body of Lucia von Bardus. Although she does rupture Wolverine's heart while it's in his chest too. She also does that. But he was about to attack Nick Fury, so fair game. Fair game, right?
Number 3, Inhumans TV show. While Black Bolt makes his Marvel Cinematic Universe debut in the Doctor Strange sequel, you might still recognize the actor who plays him, and even the character. This is because Anson Mount reprised the role for the MCU. He actually first played Black Bolt in the sadly unsuccessful Inhumans TV series. While most fans enjoyed Mount's portrayal of Blackagar, it unfortunately wasn't enough to keep the show going, and it was cancelled before even all of its first season episodes aired. Ouch. Still, seeing Anson Mount reprise his role for the MCU is pretty awesome, especially if you were a fan of the Inhumans TV series, which I'm sure there were some people that were. I think there are some fans out there for Inhumans. Yo, where are those Inhumans TV series fans? Let me know that you exist in the comments. I know you're out there.
At number 2 is Miss Marvel. One of the newest additions to the Inhumans, Miss Marvel is also known as one of the youngest, but she's also known as one of the most powerful. Her power set is insane, especially considering her young age. She's able to shapeshift on command with the pinpoint accuracy of changing the size of a specific body part, which also allows her to shrink down in size to avoid detection and escape dangerous situations. This would be enough as it is for her to rank somewhere on this list, but the reason why she's so high up is that she also has super stretching abilities and healing abilities like those of Wolverine. This puts her in a category only shared by a handful of other superheroes that suggests she may even be immortal. The only reason why we didn't put her at number 1 is that, well, first of all, Adam called dibs on the number 1 spot in this video, but secondly, simply just because Miss Marvel or Kamala Khan's youth is a factor that may stunt her effectiveness at times. Her Her lack of experience causes her to sometimes let her awe and wonder get in the way of the task at hand. But this is a great problem to have, and it's something she'll probably grow out of, so we'll check back in 5-10 years and see if she's taken that #1 spot. But for now, I hand it off to Adam for the most powerful Inhuman member on our list.
Number 1. Black Bolt. If you thought anyone but the king of the Inhumans was going to be taking this spot, well, you were wrong, obviously. Blackagar Boltagon was born to talented Inhuman geneticists, and they experimented on Blackagar, the result of which was that he was born just plain better than other Inhumans. So much so that he had to be put in an energy dampener until he was 19 years old, and he was trained extensively to control his abilities. Which is good for pretty much everybody, because a lack of self-control on a mouth like that could tear the planet in half. That's because Black Bolt produces a sonic scream whenever he vibrates his vocal cords. Now, he did actually lose this power in his fight with the jailer and the damage to his vocal cords, but his actual primary power is that of ambient particle and electron harnessing. And what the heck is that? Yes, I asked the same thing. Ambient particle and electron harnessing for Black Bolt is that the speech center of his brain contains a unique organic mechanism that's able to generate an unknown particle that interacts with the electrons he absorbs to create certain phenomena that are determined by his mental control. It's the reason he wears that stupid tuning fork thing that helps him direct and focus his powers to let him fly, manipulate matter and energy, making him Omega level, use telepathy, and enhancing his physical traits. I bet that didn't make any sense, because I didn't really get it, but whatever. Black Bolt has defeated the Vulcan and even the Incredible Hulk, and he is also a main member of the Illuminati. Putting him anywhere but #1 is just wrong.
At number 10 is Auron. Auron is gifted with the ability of super hearing, which makes her very useful as a support member on any mission. She's able to distinguish one specific person's voice, saying one particular word, and pinpoint its location from wherever she is. Usually the power only works best when she is on the same planet as her targets, because sound can't travel in a vacuum, but still, this is a pretty impressive power, and it's important not to undervalue a really effective supportive power set, because oftentimes even the most powerful beings can be left stumped in a kidnapping situation or while tracking a certain individual's location. So being able to pinpoint a target's exact location on a planetary scale is extremely valuable. Of course, she's at the back of our list just because she doesn't possess any offensive or defensive abilities, leaving her vulnerable to attacks and pretty useless in combat situations. For this reason, she unfortunately doesn't last very long in the comics and is killed after only one issue. But this is also due to circumstance and bad planning. Still though, one of the best supportive power sets in the game, I'd say. At number 9 we have Luna. Luna is the daughter of Quicksilver and Crystal, and she has a very strange addiction, and that is her addiction to Terrigen, the substance that is used to activate the powers of the Inhumans. Originally, when her powers are activated, she has the ability to see people's emotions in the form of colorful auras. But as you can imagine, Luna's powers don't end there due to her addiction to Terrigen. As she continues to feed her habit, she becomes more and more powerful, to the point where her abilities go from reading emotions to being able to control minds. With this addiction continuing to control Luna, there's no telling where her power set will end up, or if she'll ever stop gaining more powers. We just hope that the Terrigen doesn't kill her down the line before she can wane off of it, because as useful as it is in granting godlike powers, Terrigen is also a very potent substance that can't be overused. At number 8 we have Ulysses Kane. This Inhuman first gains his powers in Civil War II issue 0 when he comes in contact with the Terrigen mist cloud. His powers begin as an ability to predict the future based on perceived events and factors in the present. His mind is able to generate one or more predictions of the future based on what seems to be an algorithm that assumes the future within a pretty accurate margin. At first he doesn't have much control over these powers, but over time he's able to rein them in and expand them further. This gets him to a point where he can even project his visions into the real world for other people to see. His power therefore gives him more of a supportive role in any tactical situation, leaving him relatively vulnerable in combat. But to claim these abilities aren't still deemed extremely powerful is to claim that someone like Professor X shouldn't be considered a powerful character. Not to say their power sets are identical, but their influence to any given mission might be similar. Currently, it is unknown what Ulysses Kane's whereabouts are, but it it can be assumed that he is still working on mastering his power set. So if he comes back with some more offensive damage-based abilities or even just a heightened foresight, he may find himself much higher up on a future list. Although you'd have to ask him to confirm that for me.
Number 7. Inferno. During the fight with Thanos in Infinity, the Terrigen device was detonated, which spread Terrigen mists across the whole Earth, which activated thousands of people's dormant Inhuman genes. Inferno was one of these people. For Dante Pertuse, his Inhuman genes gave him a pyrokinesis that activated almost instantly, burning down his house with his mother inside. The Inhumans Medusa and Gorgon came to bring him to New Attilan and to help train him to control his abilities. As a new human, Dante took on the name Inferno. Get it? Because Dante's Inferno? So funny. His pyrokinesis allows him to create plasma or flame out of thin air and control it in fire and pyroblasts. He is also able to turn into a kind of fire form where his skin also becomes like stone, and in this form he looks really cool and has been shown to be able to regenerate from attacks with a kind of pyroplasma. It's also been said that he is kind of invulnerable, and it's true to a certain degree just because his flame form is so hot that some weapons will disintegrate before they can actually do damage. But that obviously isn't always the case. But he has also been shown to accidentally set himself on fire spontaneously due to lack of control. Jeez, what a hothead.
At number 6, we have Lockjaw. This pup is not to be underestimated. Although he seems like a fun, harmless character worked into the comics for the cute factor, this is far from the case. Well, maybe part of it, but not all of it, because he is cute. But I digress. Lockjaw, the superpowered bulldog, has dynamic teleportation abilities and has been known to transport himself and others through large expanses of space in an instant. He also shows signs of super strength with the ability to carry about 3,600 pounds of weight on his back, and durability with his claws having no issue tearing through ferroconcrete. And with his ability to teleport, he also seems to have spatial awareness on a grand scale and an advanced level grasp on the vastness of the cosmos. This goes hand in hand with his ability to track energies across dimensions, a result of his powerful nose. Or maybe not. I mean, it's unlikely to be based on actual scent, since it's absurd to think smells can travel across dimensions. It's more likely a superhuman or super canine ability to sense psionic waves and pick up on the mental energies of his targets.
Number 5. The floating city of Attilan. The Inhumans typically live in the floating city of Attilan. Well, it's not always floating, but for a good amount of time it did exist over Manhattan and was actually floating above it. Either Attilan is typically on Earth, floating somewhere around there, or is located on the moon, where it's also existed for a good amount of time in the comics. There have also been times when Black Bolt and his people, the Inhumans, have been without the floating city of Attilan and basically were kinda like homeless for a while. At one point that happened and no one even wanted to allow the Inhumans to stay in their nation on Earth due to prejudice against the Inhumans, thanks to the machinations of the Hidden Ones. The only person and nation at the time that would welcome the Inhumans would be Dr. Doom and his nation of Latveria. Ultimately, after the issue of Earth's prejudice against the Inhumans was resolved, even though Doom had offered Black Bolt and his people a place in Latveria, the Inhuman King refused him and instead chose to return to the moon and rebuild Attilan. It's kind of a very sick burn. Poor Doom. Doom's like, I mean, I'll let you guys stay here, and they're like, actually, no.
At number 4, we have Flint. Flint gains his powers for the first time in 2014's Inhuman number 3, when a Terrigen mist cloud envelops his hometown. The event kills his foster parents, but he survives and is imbued with powers due to his Inhuman ancestry. His abilities become linked to the earth around him, allowing him to manipulate rocks and other terra firma, which is a pretty powerful and diverse power set. Because unless he finds himself in a restricted environment during battle, he's pretty much got the ability to use that environment to his advantage. This even extends to a flying ability, meaning that he can levitate rocks and use them to suspend his body in air. In terms of sheer power, he ranks high as well, because he's even shown that his capacity for earth manipulation goes as far as moving huge masses the size of planets.
Number 3. Crystal. Crystalia Emma Kellen is probably one of the more well-known Inhumans. A princess, as she is a sister to Medusa and distant cousin to Black Bolt. She also has fingers in almost every single team in the Marvel Universe. She has dated the Human Torch as well as joined the Fantastic Four for Sue Storm from time to time. She was a member of the Avengers, and Crystal was married to Quicksilver for a time, who she has a daughter with, and is obviously friends with many of the X-Men as a result. She also has some notability off-world through her relationship with Ronan the Accuser, but her relationships and connections are only perks, not powers. Other than the inhuman qualities, Crystal has power over the classical elements, so that's fire, water, earth, and air. As such, her list of attributed powers is pretty long, so... Power list, speed round! Aerokinesis, flight, force fields, atmosphere generation, geokinesis, ferrokinesis, which is controlling metal, hydrokinesis, chirokinesis, pyrokinesis, atomic manipulation, electrokinesis, elemental awareness, and elemental immunity. Now, I mentioned atomic manipulation, meaning she can manipulate atoms. In case you don't know, that means she is Omega level. Don't mess with Crystal.
Alright, nearing the top of the list at number 2 is AHURA. AHURA is the youngest of the Inhumans right now, as he's the son of Medusa and Black Bolt. His abilities are still forming, so his position on this list may be up for debate as of tomorrow, but it seems like he has a ton of potential. His power set as of writing this list is already extremely extensive. It starts with telepathy, optic blasts, and flight. But yes, anyone with a powerful offensive attack like an energy blast who is also able to fly is already on a next level tier of power levels. But by adding telepathic abilities to the mix, we're getting into an even higher tier of superheroes. And that's not even where his power set ends. AHURA has evolved his powers not once, but twice. The first time gaining mind control, body possession, and an ability to split his soul, which I don't quite understand, but sounds cool. And the second time he gains what's known as the Evil Eye, which refers to an ability that allows him to kill anything that looks at it. So there's no doubt this is a very powerful hero who we really hope stays a good guy, by the way. AHURA is still young, as I mentioned before, so anything can happen. And he's known to have bouts of madness. So we never know, but this could subside with age. So keep an eye on this guy. He's going places. Just don't keep that eye on his evil eye, or else you'll, die. Finally, at number 1 is Thane, the secret Inhuman son of the Mad Titan, aka Thanos. And before I start, it's important to note that Thane has been stripped of his powers and is currently trapped in the God Quarry, a realm that might as well be synonymous with death. But I'd argue that this list isn't concerned with the current state of these beings, only their power sets as characters, dead, alive, or trapped in the God Quarry. And Thane's powers are so extensive that he deserves a top spot on the list, trapped or not. So let's check his power set. To start, Thane's right hand is endowed with a power known as Amber Encasement, which suspends surrounding targets in a state of living death, which is both a defensive and offensive move, extremely powerful in both respects. And secondly, he also has the Death Touch, which is controlled by his left hand, where he's able to change the constructs of existence and kill anyone in a certain radius. And this is only his power set before he's empowered by the Black Vortex and then eventually the Phoenix Force. The former gives his Amber Encasement ability a range wide enough to encase the whole planet of Spartax, and the latter gives him a cosmic teleportation ability, which, paired with everything else mentioned in this entry, makes him understandably one of the most powerful Inhumans ever to exist.
Number 10, Inhuman. Black Bolt gets his power from the collective powers of his people, known as the Inhumans. What is an Inhuman? It's kind of like a mutant like the X-Men are, but different. It's actually also kind of like an Eternal, to be honest. Instead of being born with an X gene, the power for Inhumans isn't inherently activated at any point, and the potential to manifest powers comes from their bloodline and lineage. Miss Marvel, aka Kamala Khan, who will have her own Disney Plus series airing soon, is known for being an Inhuman. Her powers manifested when she was exposed to the Terrigen Mists, which appeared on Earth. It was in this way that Kamala even learned she was a part of the Inhuman family tree. Although, I'm not sure they're gonna go that route with Kamala in her Disney Plus series. I don't even think she's gonna be an Inhuman, but I guess we'll see what happens. Black Bolt himself was born with powers because he underwent Terrigenesis while in his mother's womb, with her being experimentally exposed to the mists while she was pregnant with her son Blackagar. Number 9, Kree Connection. The Kree are coming in. coming in hot. I don't know what this dance is, that's the Kree dance, I guess. The Inhumans are actually a race that were in fact created by the Kree. If you've heard me talk about the Eternals before to explain their origins, you know that they were created by the Celestials who experimented on humans to create this new race of beings about 1 million years ago, also creating their enemies, the Deviant race. Similarly, the Inhumans were a result of Kree visiting Earth and experimenting on humans also a long time ago, finding a way to bring out hidden potential within them and basically creating the Inhuman race, who have the potential to manifest superpowers. The Kree had planned to use the Inhumans along with other genetically altered races of their design across the cosmos to use in their seemingly never-endless war with the Skrulls, but this plan ended up being abandoned by the Supreme Intelligence. And now there isn't even a war between the Kree and the Skrulls in the comics anymore, because now we have the Alliance, which is them together. Huh. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to show our channel some love on a different platform, you can head on over to Facebook and give us a like and a follow. It really does help us out, so thank you. Number 8. Yes, that is his real name. Black Bolt is Inhuman royalty. When we are first introduced to him in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, he is introduced as Blackagar Boltagon, leading Steven to respond upon hearing his name, "Really?" And yes, that is really his name, even in the comics. His brother Maximus is also a Boltagon, but I suppose considering that Black Bolt is considered to be one of the primary, if not the primary Inhuman hero in the world of Marvel, it makes sense, as absurd as it sounds, that his name would be an alliteration. A lot of heroes created early on had names that would be considered alliteration. Alliteration is when the beginning of a word next to another word or close together with another word both begin with the same sound or letter, such as Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, Reed Richards, Scott Summers, or even Betsy Braddock, or even Blackagar Boltagon, or Black Bolt.
At number 7, we have Gorgon. Gorgon's power set isn't particularly diverse, but it is powerful in the classic use of the word. This guy's got strength. Gorgon is a loyal friend and guard to the royal family of ATTILAN, and yes, he's got hooves. And he uses these hooves as powerful weapons, which can generate massive shockwaves, and have even been known to create fissures sizable enough to split planets in half. But even on a normal day, he can cause 7.5 to 9.5 magnitude earthquakes by simply stomping with his hooves. His general strength level is higher than most other Inhumans, giving him an edge in that regard, but he's also known to have tons of agility, stamina, and speed. Basically every attribute that you'd want a competent royal guard to possess. He only gets held back a bit on the list because strength isn't all that's required to be ranked high on a list about power, and he's up against the Inhumans. They're a tough group to beat.
Number 6. Maximus. Yes, Black Bolt does have a brother, and while Black Bolt is typically known for being a hero, his brother is actually more known for playing the role of the villain. Maximus is Blackagar's younger brother, who is typically referred to as Maximus the Mad. Maximus has the Inhuman superpower to mind control others, read their minds or alter their minds, even being able to alter their personalities. He's also known for being a genius, an evil genius. Often Maximus uses his power set to try and take over the throne, attempting to rule in his brother's place after having him deposed. He also has, however, used his powers to try and help Black Bolt from time to time, but the two have a similar dynamic to, I would say, Loki and Thor. Typically Maximus can't or shouldn't be trusted, but you know, sometimes they do team up and do things together. Basically, if Maximus is like, yeah, I guess this thing is like worse than I think you are, so I guess I'll team up with you. That's usually how it goes. Or I guess, I think there was a time when he wasn't considered like mad anymore and he was kind of cool for a bit.
Number 5, the Reader. I think this may be one of my favorite Inhuman powers. So Reader has the really cool ability to make whatever he reads real, which, if you think about it, is a truly incredible power. Reader is part of a group of ATTILAN Inhumans who live on Earth that call themselves the Lore. Now, because of Reader's potentially immense power, the people of the Lore tribe took his eyes out, making him unable to read things. On top of this, the Reader has mental blocks in place that stop him from accidentally rewriting reality by reading the wrong things. So how does he still read with no eyes? The same way blind people do. Braille. Reader carries around Braille cards that have single words on them that allow him to do different things in combat and in given situations. For example, he has a card that says see in Braille, that when read allows him to see through the eyes of others. Or the back and freeze cards, which allow him to go back in time or pause time respectively. He has reality warping powers, but he does have a weakness in the form of only being able to use 3 words a day that gradually become less and less powerful. Because we can't let him be too overpowered now, that would just ruin things.
Number 4. Medusa. Medusa is another very important person in Black Bolt's life, widely being considered his one true love. Black Bolt actually has had multiple wives, having to do so to basically help reconnect and bring together the alien and human races when they rejoined with their Earth-based brethren. However, of his multiple required marriages, Medusa was the only one that he was really married to that he loved. Medusa is also an Earth-based Inhuman like Black Bolt, and in fact the two of them are second cousins by marriage, which is kind of typical, at least historically, of a royal marriage like theirs. A lot of royals tend to like marry in families. A lot of inbreeding and royalty. Ooh. Medusa and Black Bolt aren't always together in the comics, but they do frequently end up back together in the end. Medusa's power lies in her long red locks of hair, which she can manipulate and control like limbs. Her hair is not only tensile and agile, but it's also super strong. Not something you'd want to get tangled up in, trust me. Medusa is typically known as Queen of the Inhumans, but is currently known as Commander Medusa. Now thinking about that, people are probably going to be like, actually I would want to get tangled up in Medusa's hair. I mean, I think you'd only want to do that if she likes you. Otherwise, don't do it.
At number 3 is Lash. This Inhuman is not a good dude, and is one of the only Inhumans who was granted his abilities not at birth as a natural process, but later in life as a sort of twisted gift. This superficial process gives him a very strong power set, including energy conversion as well as teleportation. The energy conversion allows him to take power from his surroundings, including other superpowered beings, and emit them from his palms in a massive blast of power. These blasts are so powerful that they are known to disintegrate his targets almost instantly, but this depends on how much power he absorbs in the first place. But of course, that isn't all that Lash is capable of. He's also adept with teleportation, a very useful power and terrifying if it falls into the wrong hands. And you could argue that Lash is one of those cases. Not to mention, he's also known to be able to generate an energy shield on command, which just adds that perfect boost to his defensive stat that makes him an extremely dynamic and powerful superpowered being.
Number 2. First appearance. Black Bolt might be new to a lot of people who are more MCU fans than comic book fans, but the character has actually been around for a really long time in the comics. Black Bolt made his first appearance in Fantastic Four issue number 45 back in 1965. Yeah, he's an old and quite established character at this point. Making his first appearance in Fantastic Four is also very fitting considering how the Inhumans would continue to have a close relationship with the FF throughout their history, especially when it comes to Black Bolt and his wife Medusa. Medusa even at one point was dating Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch, and Medusa's sister Crystal, an Inhuman who can control and influence the elements and who was also considered Inhuman royalty, also at one point dated the Human Torch. In fact, they actually had like quite a relationship. Yeah, if you're also wondering, yeah, there's lots of love triangles abound there, as you can imagine. Medusa and Crystal being sisters, and then Johnny, and then obviously Black Bolt's around. It was a time. Number 1. Powers. So we know Black Bolt has a powerful voice from his appearance in the MCU, but how exactly does that work? Well, it actually all has to do with the speech center of his brain, which can basically harness the power of electrons and ambient particles. In fact, you know that tuning fork that he wears on his head? That's not just a weird costume choice, it actually helps him to more fine-tune his powers. Although it also, I think, is very fitting that he wears like a tuning fork and he's using voice powers. It's kind of fun. Black Bolt is believed to be one of the most powerful Inhumans to have ever existed, which means that even using his powers to begin with had dire consequences, like when he accidentally caused the death of his parents. Black Bolt has had to train ever since he was basically a baby in how to best use his powers so that he doesn't just destroy everything when he, says words. In fact, he even grew up in isolation because of the destructive force of his powers. He can use his powers to fly, create powerful energy fields around himself, produce concussive blasts, bolster his physical strength and power, and he also possesses the power of telepathy and a strong telepathic defense. This is one of the main ways that Black Bolt actually communicates, as even a whisper could cause massive harm to those around him. Also, when it comes to that tuning fork I was talking about, it's also super cute because LOCKJAW, who is basically his dog, who also should have gotten his own point on this list if I had enough time and space, also is a tuning fork. And LOCKJAW is awesome. He can teleport all over the place.